Ultra cyclist, Ironman triathlete, scientist, coach, sports nutritionist, entrepreneur, and athlete ambassador. It's Chaitanya Velhal, more commonly known by the name Chai. As an athlete, Chai has completed many ultra events including the Desert 500 and the 500-mile Deccan Cliffhanger hosted each year by Inspire India, which is a RAM qualifier taking racers from Pune to Goa in India. As an Ironman racer, Chai is also a competitive runner and swimmer. Professionally, Chai provides a holistic approach to coaching his athletes with credentials in strength training and nutrition, as well as a master's degree in biotechnology and biomechanics. In this episode, we'll hear all about Chai's own achievements, including his 2 TEDx talks and how he coaches his athletes to success. We'll also get an inside look into the Everesting event his Power Peaks Athlete Lab hosted this year for Indian ultra racers. I'm your host, Justin Tu. Let's roll. Hey Ultra family, Justin Tu here, your host of the Ultra Cycling Show. Thanks for tuning in for today's special episode with a guest from India, Chai Velhal. He is an ultra cyclist, Ironman triathlete, scientist, coach, sports nutritionist, entrepreneur, and athlete ambassador. Really excited to have Chai on the show. Chai, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Justin. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, you've been involved with quite a lot in your years, both as an athlete and also as a coach yourself, very successful athletes. And so it is going to be a very fun episode to discuss all of that and more, and as well as a recent event that your Power Peaks Athlete Lab put together, which was an Everesting event that had a lot of participants out there in India. So really excited to discuss that and just see how all that went. It's really exciting to me to see all of the ultra cycling that is happening in India. Of course, we have had a number of other guests on the show. We had Divya Tate of Inspire India, Mayank Tripathi, who's just loves indoor cycling.
Oh yeah, he's a beast on indoor.
Yeah, and we also had Srinivas Gokulnath just recently, who was the first Indian to complete the race across America and the race around Austria. So a lot of very strong athletes, not just Indian ultra cyclists, but quite frankly, setting some great records and also great performances on the global stage. And of course, you're a big part of that now as a coach and nutritionist. Before we get into all of that, Chai, I'd love to start with a fun quick sprint round of questions to get to know you in a fun way. So just a series of questions you could answer in a few sentences. Love to get to know you. Of course, first question is, how long have you even been riding bicycles?
Well, out of my 32 years, probably 30 years, as long as I can remember.
Cool. So you are 32 years old?
Yeah.
All right. A lot of young...
I've been, even in my schools, I used to just go out in the countryside.
Yeah.
Like I was just too young to go, but I would still go out and explore. So.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So you've always had a need for adventure, and of course you've taken that to great extremes in your later years. Now, are you based in Pune?
Yes, I am.
Okay, very cool. I know a lot of ultra cycling happens there, and the Deccan Cliffhanger is it from Pune, right? Pune to Goa.
Correct. Starts from here, Pune, and ends in a city called Goa. It's down south. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Divya Tate told us all about the Deccan Cliff hangover at the end.
Yeah.
A nice party that you guys have to celebrate. Okay, how long have you been an ultra cyclist, Chai?
So I did my first ultra cycling race in 2014, but I would have done my first BRM in 2012. So I think doing a BRM does qualify you as an ultra cyclist. So probably 8 years now then. But those were the official ratings.
A brevet?
Yeah, the brevet. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, very good. So
So
you've been involved for a long time. So
yeah,
Chai,
yeah. So
how many
did the
bicycles do you
Super
own?
Andenair series. Sorry, not the Super, and I missed the 600. So did the 400, 200s, 300s. Did them pretty fast back in the day.
Cool. So is Paris Press Paris on your radar?
Maybe soon. There's
Yeah,
so many events. You just gotta prioritize.
yeah. There's a lot of good ones,
Yeah,
even there in India, some of which I would
correct.
love to participate in.
Do calm
And
down.
yeah, Divya has told me about some of them. Particularly, I'd like to try that Great Himalayan
Oh, yeah,
event.
pretty.
I mean, just for the scenery, but it looks like a grueling
Yeah.
event.
Oh, it is.
And Chai, I'm curious, how many bicycles do you own? I see a bunch there in your pain cave.
Uh, I have almost 10. Uh,
Holy.
yeah, one like almost each type of bikes that we have. So yeah, I've never sold any. Yeah, I just commuters, fixies, kitty bike, road bike. There's a retro one over here. It's a gift from my father-in-law.
Yeah, no, I see
So
that. I was going to ask about that. Is that must be a steel frame, right?
it's a steel frame. It's the first road bike that was made in India back in the 70s.
Wow.
It's a fixie. So
Huh.
yeah,
That's so cool.
it was my father-in-law's first bike, and he just gifted it to me.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
really so
it's a
cool.
pretty
I'd
one.
I'd love to see you do an ultra event on that one.
Oh yeah, that would be grueling.
Chai, what's your favorite of your 10 bicycles?
This beast up here, the first one. So that's a Merida Warp time trial bike.
Mm,
I got that as a sponsored bike from Merida for my Ironman events. Um,
cool.
I really love that one. I've really training hard on that for the last 3 4 years now, and holding that TT position for 24 hours. I can hold that now after 3 years. So and it's pretty fast. So
Oh,
yeah.
interesting. So you've done some 24-hour time trials out there in India?
Yeah. So the Deccan, so not the time trial, but it's a ultra race, right? The
Oh,
DC
right.
as we
Yeah, yeah.
call it. So been doing the DC mostly on this bike. Just on the climbs, I changed to the road bike, the
Mm,
black one over here. But apart from that, the flats and the downhills or the rolling, do it on the time trial bike.
right,
We
right.
even had a virtual time trial event, and that was pretty fun as well and pretty hard.
Yeah, I
I
can
didn't
imagine.
really like that. I mean, I'd prefer outdoors anytime.
Okay, so very different from Mayank Tripathi, who prefers to be
Oh
indoors and
yeah. He
just
was there.
loves hammering it on his indoor cycle.
Right.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
very cool. I know that Divyatate did say that Inspire India is hoping to put on a 6/12/24 time trial, the
yeah.
Dunes, and so we'll look forward to
We've been
seeing all
planning
the
that.
athletes
Yeah.
out there. Yeah. Now, Chai, I'm curious, what bicycle computer do you use? Do you use a Garmin or a Wahoo or another brand?
I use a Garmin. I'm also partly sponsored by Garmin, so
Ah, I see.
it's pretty convenient. It's also one of the good brands out there. So yeah,
Hmm.
Garmin.
Yeah, cool. Now, depending on what event you're doing, I suppose it may differ from your Ironmans to your ultra events. What size tire do you prefer using, and at what tire pressure do you like running them at?
23, and if I'm doing a road race, I'll run them at 130. If I'm doing an ultra, 120.
Hmm, interesting. So you do actually do some road racing as well on the shorter distances, so you must be
I
pretty
used to
fast.
do so. That's where I came into ultra cycling. Actually, I started off as a road racer
Mm-hmm.
back in the day. Till about 2015, I was doing some road racing. Yeah, and then post that, I focused more on the ultras after that.
Yeah, cool. So when it comes to gearing, are you using a compact or another set?
Both actually. I have a compact on the TT bike,
Mm,
and then the normal ones on the road race, the
yeah.
road bikes.
Yeah. So I'd imagine you as a coach and also a high performing athlete, you probably worry about things like heart rate and power.
Oh yeah, big
Yeah.
time.
Now, do
As a
you
scientist, I'm totally into data.
and is a functional threshold power test something that you do on a regular occasion yourself?
Yes, pretty much. That's how I manage my own fitness and for all my athletes as well.
Right. Now, do you remember what your last FTP test was?
Oh yeah, pretty clearly. So you want to know the number or?
Yeah, I'd love to know the number
or
and even if you have your
okay,
weight per kilogram.
I was at 3.2 watts per kilo.
Hmm.
The last time I did that, I think it was about just before my time trial race.
Hmm.
This was in September.
Ah.
But after that, I've been focusing on running because before December, I'm planning. I have got a big ultra run event coming up
Hmm.
on December 12th. So it's just been running after September for me. So
Cool.
I definitely my FTP would have been dropped by now.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. We did have an
Yeah,
episode with Chris Calamano, also an Ironman
yeah.
athlete, also a an ultra runner, and he has done
Okay,
big ultra events, did compete in a variety of ultra cycling events, including the virtual Hoodoo 500. So you're in
okay.
good company, and perhaps you guys get to run in one of the ultra events one day.
Oh, definitely. Looking forward.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, Chai, I'm really curious. What's your favorite ride snack? What do you like eating on the bike?
Snickers.
Okay.
Yeah, and if it's an endurance ride or just a gel, if it's a short, high intensity training ride.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I
yeah.
think you're in good company. We recently had an episode with Adam Ashwell, 17-year-old
Oh yeah,
promising
I
ultra
saw that.
athlete here in the US. I think he said that Snickers was one of his. All right, well, how about your
But
favorite hydration?
ironically, during the ultra races, I like to have like real solid food, and I'll have like mashed rice and
Mm,
sweet potatoes as well. But that's
mm,
only if I have a crew behind me.
right,
Otherwise,
right.
just Snickers. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. How about hydration? What do you like drinking on the bike?
Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a preference. I just use a different noon salts probably,
Mm,
or just normal salt sometimes. Just yeah, depends on how long and how hot it is.
mm,
But usually here in India, it's always hot, so it's always some form of electrolyte.
right. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense. Definitely used to that. And we were chatting earlier. Of course, you were a crew member in 2015 for the Race Across America, the year that
yeah,
I was there, and you did experience the extreme heats that we had that year going through
yeah,
Arizona. I did want to take a moment to pause and just show folks some of the photos that we'll be reviewing through this episode, get to know you a little bit visually, of course, as an Ironman athlete and as an ultra cyclist, as a coach, the Everest event that you put on just recently.
yeah.
A lot of participants out there. So, Chai, what is your favorite post-ride meal? What do you like doing? What do you like eating after, say, an Ironman or, a long, hard ride or run or swim?
Um, Usually from after a long hot ride, I have ice cream. I really love ice cream.
Oh, yummy. What's your favorite flavor?
Um, just whatever I could get my hands on, but vanilla or butterscotch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, usually. Um, but I actually this year I'm not eating ice cream. Just one of my resolutions, just to see how far I get, and by far I've been pretty good.
Hmm.
So otherwise, I'll just have if I'm really preparing for a race, then I'll just stick to my protein shakes and some fruits and some good complex carbs like rice and
Hmm.
pasta. Yeah, just to get my glycogen up.
Yeah, cool. No, sounds good. Now, do you prefer riding on the climbs, the descent rollers, or the flats?
Oh, I do a mix of all. I really love my climbs. When I have my climb, when I have it in my training plan, I really like to hammer them, hammer up them. Not really scared. I love to go down. I'm pretty big guy for a cyclist. I'm
Hmm.
not like one of those lean cyclists. So not a great climber. Always been better sprinter and better at the fast flat races.
Hmm.
But personally, I'd never run away from a climb. So
Now, how about on the other end with descending? Are you pretty comfortable going down? And do you know what
yeah,
your max
very, very.
speed down a
Yeah.
hill has been?
About 85, 86. The
Okay.
thing is, we don't have great roads, so we have to be very
Hmm.
careful.
Oh, I see.
Um,
That's
and
true.
then we have a lot of idiots coming the wrong way. So
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, now I guess there in India, I mean, it gets very hot, of course, but through the year, is there a particular season that you enjoy riding most? The fall, winter, spring, or summertime?
it gets hard in the monsoons when it's just constantly pouring for 3 4 months. It gets the water gets logged everywhere, so it's very
Hmm.
risky.
Hmm.
But apart from that, winters aren't too extreme. So in fact, winters are preferred training months. Cycling, all the events happening around the winter times. Summers does get a little too hot, but where we are in Pune, not too extreme. Probably max of around hottest could be 48
Hmm.
a few days, but yeah, we are fine here.
Wow. So 48, that'd be 118 Fahrenheit for
Mm.
us here in America. So that's pretty hot. That's
That's pretty hard, but yeah, I mean that's a few days. It's
yeah.
not like it's like gonna be like that for every day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, when you were going across America with Joan Deichmann, you experienced
I think that year we hit about 55, was it?
yeah, it was very, very hot
Yeah, it's crazy.
for a long time. I remember vividly. How about time of day that you prefer training?
Um, I usually prefer early mornings. I'm a morning person, but I just had a kid. He's 9 months now, so nowadays it's all about whenever you are free, I do my training. Just any time in the day. It could be
Yeah.
morning, evening, afternoon.
Well,
It's
now I
just
can
crazy when
relate.
you have
You
a
know,
kid.
I have a son, 8.5 months old, will be 9 months in a
Okay.
few weeks. So
Hey, they're almost the same age now.
yeah,
That's cool, yeah.
I can definitely
Nice.
relate. So perhaps one day our children will be racing each other on
We'll
the
be
global
racing.
stage. But
Nice. That would be cool.
perhaps your child, boy or girl?
He's a boy. Yeah, I've got a
Okay.
son.
So perhaps
9 months old.
your son will have an advantage to have a coach, a nutritionist for a father.
Hey, you're not pretty too far behind. You've done RAM, you know. Plus, you're
All right,
talking to
Chai.
so many athletes, you know.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
that's definitely a
That's
good
true,
one, you know.
including you. Now, Chai, do you think ultra cycling requires more physical or mental training?
Um, so that's a trick question. Definitely a lot mental strength is required. I mean, everyone does their physical training, and but then at the end, people with the athletes with the best mentality and a really good mental strength will shine out and will finish and achieve the target. That's what I believe.
Hmm. Yeah, that's very true. I couldn't agree more. So, Chai, out of all the events that you've competed in, has there been one that's been your favorite?
Um, okay, there are quite a few. I mean, my Ironmans are pretty special, but the best one till date would be my first ultra ride, ultra race, the Deccan Cliffhanger. It was my first ultra race, and I won it, so it will always be my special one. Uh, and at that time, I was the fastest Indian as well, so
Oh,
always my
that's nice.
special one. That was, I think, that was 2018. 2014,
Hmm.
where I did that. Yeah,
Very special indeed. Yeah, that's great. And I know there are many fast Indian ultra cyclists, so it's very competitive out there, especially more and more
yeah,
so as a lot of more athletes turn in that direction. And there are a
correct.
great set
Yeah,
of events there to help nurture the ultra cyclists in the country. And of course, we've had many come in here in the US to compete in the Race Across America in
yeah.
recent years. And so that's exciting. Look forward to having you perhaps one day in
Awesome.
the Scandinavian
Definitely,
Oceanside.
definitely. You'll see me one day soon.
Yeah, cool.
I'm planning to do an Ironman there,
Hmm.
somewhere in California next year.
Oh, sweet. That'd be awesome to
Yeah.
have you here. Now, of course, on the subject of Ironmans, you have done the Ironman in South Africa, and that's a
Hmm.
special one because I'm originally from South Africa. And so very cool. You've seen my home country. Hopefully one day I
Yeah.
could come see your home country.
I love South Africa. I mean, I've been there twice. It's like a second home to me now.
Hmm.
Just love it.
That's cool. Yeah. It's been a bit of a bummer through this pandemic. Haven't really been able to visit and I miss all the food and good sights. Of course it is
Yeah,
summertime there now, getting there, and so it's a lot warmer. It's been cooling
yeah.
down here in California, but I guess I can't complain. Chai, I'd love to turn our attention to many other things that you have done and your coaching and your coaching business, all your Ironmans. But I first want to discuss the Everesting event that you put on not too
Yeah,
long ago.
yeah.
Just give me a bit of a summary of that event. I mean, how did it even come about?
Um, so this started. So we had a big lockdown happen because of the pandemic, and this happened on the 14th of March. Um, so when it hit us here, all the cycling and all, what I did was to keep all my students motivated. I started these Zoom sessions
Mm,
where we were just doing our indoor training, and we had all my athletes, even all our friends also coming in, and we just used to endlessly, do 200 Ks or 8-hour rides and 12-hour rides and stuff.
mm,
And that's when we started discussing. Everesting always used to come up, and you know, as cyclists, you'd always want to do something like that. So we would just discuss where we could do it, and how you will do it, and what could be the timings and all. So that's where it hit me. Okay, probably we might do this once the pandemic ends. Maybe a couple of months. This is what I thought in March. But then obviously the lockdowns continued, and we could not go out until about September.
mm,
Um, we couldn't cycle outside till September. So,
mm,
and then I was still stuck in my head this idea of doing Everesting, and most of the boys were really keen about it. So as soon as I got a chance, the things started to open up, and the outdoor activities and the public activities were, because we needed special permissions, and also
mm,
soon, all these the government allowed all of these to happen. So we went to the local police commissioners, and we got the permissions to do this. Um, and yeah, I mean, I just set it up that okay, the boys want to do something. There's been absolutely no events this year. They were, all of us were pretty demotivated because there was no goal to train for. Even the DC got cancelled. A lot of the boys were getting preparing for the Deccan Cliffhanger, so they needed to vent their energy out, right? Because they have been training so hard. So that's where Everesting came into the picture. Fortunately, we got the permissions. We got a very good place, a small hill with a dead end road, so there was no through traffic there. So, and because the police were involved, we got the entire road shut. Um, and we just had the permission to do this for about 30 people only.
mm.
So there were just 30 athletes. However, there was interest from probably a lot more, and I had to turn around at least more than 40 40, 50 people because we just sold out, yeah, real fast.
Mm.
And out of the 30 people, 28 people finished.
Wow.
Of that, I think almost 10 of them did the full Everesting, and
Mm.
about 16, 17 odd people did the half Everesting
Wow.
on that
Awesome.
day.
So of
Yeah,
course we have an image here of the some of the participants, and there were actually some female riders out there as well, right?
there were six females there. Yeah,
Wow, amazing. Looks like a great view here. So this is in Pune?
this is in Pune. Yes, just a
Very
little
cool.
outskirts. Yeah.
Yeah, no, awesome. Must have been a fun and grueling day,
Oh yeah.
but it must have been great to get out there and do
In
something.
fact, we had some records there as well.
Oh, wow.
We had the fastest Indian male.
Hmm.
For the full Everesting, we had the fastest Indian male for the half Everesting, and even the fastest female for the half Everesting as well. So
Oh,
we had the youngest ones also. So that was pretty crazy time. There was
yeah.
just a lot of records pouring in.
No, that's great. It's incredible.
And to be honest, there was not a lot of attempts that had happened from India anyway. Because when I announced the event in was this end of September,
Hmm.
there was just about 11 recorded attempts,
Hmm.
and as we sit today, there are more than 70. So
Wow.
it just blew up. As soon as we announced, a lot of people, found out about it, and then they started attempting it in their own hometowns, and
Hmm.
they even came down to Pune from different parts. We had people from Bombay, from northern parts of India, from the southern parts, from different states also, just for this event. So
Hmm.
that was pretty nice.
Yeah, that's cool. Great way to promote the sport and
Yeah,
keep it
yeah,
going even through a difficult year. And I think it has been a trend, at least with the ultra community, that the pandemic hasn't slowed a lot of us down. There have been many world
yeah.
records, in fact, that people have turned their attentions to. And we recently have done an interview with another athlete, Jen Orr, here in
Hmm.
the States. She won the race across the West not too long ago.
Okay.
And in fact, she was attempting the 24-hour record for the women's category, and she just missed that one, but she did set, I believe it was 8 other world records along the way.
Oh yeah. I think
Yeah,
I was following her. Yes,
yeah,
you're right. Yeah.
incredible effort. It was there in Borrego
Right.
Springs, which you would be familiar with,
Yeah.
there in the beginning
Yeah.
of the race across America. Now, of course, the Everesting Challenge has been very popular as well through the pandemic, and
Yeah.
even
It
with
was.
the pro peloton with pro cyclists. But for those who aren't familiar with the Everesting Challenge, essentially it's just doing the elevation of Everest, which is 8,848 meters or 29,029 feet, and you do all of that in one ride. So for the hill that you selected, Chai, how
Yeah.
many intervals of that hill did the athletes have?
64.
Wow. Okay, so quite a lot of them.
Yeah. It was a
And
small one.
what was it more mostly straight up and down, or were there quite a lot of curves and turns?
There were three switchbacks.
Hmm.
Um, Pretty steep at the average grade of 8.4%. Yeah, but the segment was only 1.7 kilometers.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. And do you think this will become an annual event for yourselves?
I hope so. I mean, I'm even planning to do it in other cities as well. So
Hmm.
uh, I think it could definitely has the potential.
Right.
So yeah, I
That's
mean, and
great.
a lot of people have put their interest. So we'd love to do that again.
Yeah. Very cool, Chai. We'll look forward to seeing more of that to come. Now,
Yeah, would
turning our
love.
attention back to you, so yourself as an athlete, I'm wondering how did you even get introduced to the world of ultra sports? I mean, obviously you're running a lot, swimming a lot,
Mm.
you've bicycled a lot, especially, and have completed many things and have a lot of achievements to your name.
Yeah.
Who was there someone that introduced you, or was it just an event that got you interested, the Deccan Cliffhanger, perhaps?
So even before that, the brevets were a big part to introduce me into the whole, more than 10 hours of cycling.
Mm,
Um, and but then before that, I was into touring, so
mm,
doing a lot of cycle touring. Even as a student, when I was studying in Australia, I was, really exploring the whole country on my bike.
mm,
So I think that's where the initial seeds of ultra cycling was sown. And definitely when I started the ways, uh, Divya's been very encouraging about that. She's been a good friend, and she's been organizing these races. I mean,
mm.
winning my first ultra race definitely was a big step. And after that, I took these races much more seriously and made sure I won some and gave back to the community by teaching more athletes and helping them do well in these races. Because when I started out, I did not really have a coach, and
Mm.
things were not so structured, and I really got introduced to heart rate and power, much later on. So, I really want to give that back, and we make sure that we have, much faster records and people at races like the Ram, more and more Indians over there.
Yeah, that's fantastic goal and great ambitions. And it's good to have people like you and Divya really promoting and advancing the ultra cycling community in India. And I know a lot is happening already, and we'll just stay tuned
Yeah.
as everyone keeps developing over there. And we'll see a lot of competition on the global stage. And
Oh,
then
definitely.
all
In
that.
fact, we even had, me and Divya were a part of a team where I coached a couple of, a team of riders for the race around Austria in 2017. And this was even before Srinivas did his event, which was in 2018.
That's awesome.
I think you might know Bharat because he was there last year for his RAM attempt.
Mm, that's so cool.
Yeah,
Very nice. Okay, Chai, so you were talking about Australia. You did study there. You got a master's degree in biotechnology, emphasis in
yeah,
genetics. You also do have a bachelor's degree from the University of Pune in
yeah,
microbiology.
yeah,
So just academically and by way of your background, you do have a lot of useful knowledge and you've studied a lot of useful topics. You have also, of course, obtained your coaching credentials and in sports nutrition.
yeah,
So I'm really curious now to turn our attention a bit to that aspect of yourself and also your own training and how you coach and train your athletes. I'm sure they're competing in a variety of different events from Ironmans to
yeah,
ultra cycling events. First
yeah.
question I have for you is, in all your years of experience in coaching, what do you think most people miss in the way of training or nutrition, or perhaps both?
I think most people miss the importance of recovery.
Hmm.
Um, they pretty much everyone is really when they start out really motivated, and they just keep training and overdoing stuff and really ignoring the recovery aspect of it. Other thing would be the discipline and the whole being organized part of being an athlete. I mean, managing your other commitments and your racing and your training properly. Uh, I think that's a big aspect that an athlete needs to learn.
Hmm. And as you're coaching your own athletes, what are some
Yeah.
of the tips that you give them to balance all of that, and also to be able to slow down enough to get that recovery in?
So as a coach, I try to explain them and give them some technical reasons why recovery is so important. But again, it depends from athlete to athlete because some athlete will understand only if you give them the technical and the scientific uh, reason to it. And then some people, you just have to really, say that, okay, if you don't do this, I'm not going to coach you. And, you know, yeah, but then they all come around eventually. Um, yeah, I think, did I answer that question?
Yeah. So give us a short summary of technically, according to your background, why is recovery important? And perhaps even especially for an ultra cyclist who may perhaps be putting in many, many more miles than,
Yeah.
the average cyclist.
See, I mean, again, one of the challenges that we see that all these athletes who let's say, who's just starting out, there is so much knowledge out there, YouTube and Google, and then they see all the pros following a specific plan and doing whatnot, and then they are trying to emulate that on day one. I mean, that's really damaging. So we got to sit them out and got to tell them, okay, yes, the pros are doing that, but you can't do that today. There are steps we have to do it, build it up gradually. We have to give time for the adaptation to take in. You have to, do the work, give the body time to recover, get that adaptation in. And then, once you're ready, go out there, put in more effort, and keep doing that till you get better.
Mm, very true. Do you have to take it incrementally? And that's one of the challenges of getting into ultra cycling because, of
Yeah.
course, you are talking about very long durations of time and long
Oh
distances.
yeah, it's very tricky in ultra cycling because the science is pretty iffy. That's what I think. I mean, all
Mm,
that science is, it's really great for the short distance racing, the road racing. Um, but I think for the ultra cycling, experience counts much more along with all the scientific knowledge. So
mm,
you have to really be careful when
mm.
you start training. Yeah.
Now, Chai, I'd imagine you have trained a number of ultra cyclists.
Yeah.
Now, generally, what is your approach to establishing a macro high level plan for them? Does it look like working on a lot of power initially, or is it about laying a real base of miles and also using that as a means of preparing them mentally? I'm really curious about that aspect, especially.
So it depends on the kind of athlete that we have, because some of the athletes who are coming from, let's say, a road racing background, these kids, they already have a high power base to them.
Mm,
So obviously, what you got to work them on is to improve their thresholds and to keep that power for a longer time, increase their aerobic capacities, and then obviously the ability to stay out there for extended amounts of time. Slowly work with work on that mindset of not burning off too quick. Having that ability to stay back, stay in control for a longer time, stuff like that. And obviously, on the other hand, if we have something, if an athlete just starting out with, say, like a touring background and already has a lot of volume under his legs, then obviously we might have certain macro cycles in place where we just focus on uh, getting the power high, maybe probably even a whole season of
mm,
just working on that FTP, working on that raw muscular power. Um, I mean, for example, what we just did for Everesting. So we knew that the race was not going to happen. So I just had to change the whole macro cycle and just work on the raw muscular power so that they can climb better and
mm,
get that Everesting in. I mean, and now these boys are pretty happy. Okay, now they have that one goal under their legs, and now we are back to getting the legs ready for another ultra race coming in January.
mm. Interesting. So for something like the Deccan Cliffhanger ultra
Yeah.
race in India, what would you say is a good time frame for somebody to train for that, and what kind of base would you recommend they have before they even started that?
I would say a base of at least 1 year of brevet riding, or you know, at least about 5,000 odd kilometers every month on an average. So some that kind of legs is a good thing for something around a 24-hour race or longer. Because one challenge here in India is not just the distance itself, but we have to really be careful with the whole traffic situation here, and the extreme the the weather. Usually it gets very hot in the day, even in winters. So we've got to be used to that.
Yeah, very true as well. Now, I mean, it's been a different year with the pandemic, but
Yeah.
typically, do you do much training with your athletes? I'd imagine perhaps even perhaps group rides.
So we try to do our Sunday long rides together.
Hmm.
Definitely not happened in the pandemic. We have just started out again. Um, so yeah, that usually the Sunday rides are together, and we do some Wednesdays as our climbing day, where we just
Hmm.
head out to a hill and keep doing repetitions.
Yeah,
But
cool.
these are usually short because everyone has work on that day.
Right.
Yeah.
I did want to share your Facebook page for Power Peaks Athlete Lab. Seeing this nice cover photo. Many
So that
happy
was
athletes.
that's from Goa. Yeah, we had
Ah,
a triathlon training camp.
oh, cool. Very nice. A lot of happy athletes there, I'm sure, under good care with you. And
Yeah,
so folks could
yeah.
follow you on Facebook.
Thank
I do
you.
remember actually seeing this video here on the Everesting.
Yeah, that's just me climbing up.
Yeah, very cool.
Thanks, Justin.
And then, of course, folks can follow you on Instagram as well. So, Chai, when it comes
Yeah.
to ultra cycling, what are some of the toughest workouts that you give to your athletes and ones you think that they dread the most, but you know will make them
Oh,
strong?
there are a few ones where we do some repetitions at over the threshold for about a couple of minutes, but then you come down. The recoveries are still pretty high, at just about FTP levels, and this just to work on their to increasing their lactate thresholds, um, and the ability to hold higher power, and just work under fatigue. So that one's pretty brutal.
Hmm.
And then we end this up with a time trial of a 5 minute one at the end. So that's just a brutal finish to it. Probably goes for
Yeah.
about 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So, for those viewers who aren't familiar, perhaps they haven't had a coach before, or maybe they're just new to the sport, explain to folks what a lactate threshold is and why that's important, especially for an ultra cyclist.
Okay. Okay. Technical alert here. So lactic acid, as we all know, or we don't know if you don't know, it's a byproduct of your energy systems. So every time whenever you are going into your anaerobic zones, there's a cycle. When you're producing energy, the byproduct called lactic acid will start accumulating. Definitely, the body can use this byproduct to further make energy, but when you are working out, if you're doing high intensity stuff, the ability of the body to use this lactic acid reduces, or just that the body will produce so much more that the body cannot utilize those many molecules of lactate that is produced. So this accumulation may lead to fatigue, sometimes even the burning sensation in the muscles. So just getting used to that feeling and getting used to working, keeping that power on even during the buildup of that acid is you need to train your body for that. So that's what lactate threshold. So that lactate threshold is where this accumulation and the using of the body's ability to use that is at the same level. And if the amount of lactate goes above that, obviously then the performance is gonna go down.
Interesting.
That's lactate threshold.
Thanks for that technical explanation. Now, how long does it take for lactic acid to clear from the system, for the body to process all of that?
I mean that. Okay, it's definitely happening. It happens real time as as you're exercising or doing your activities. But the rate of that happening may differ from athlete to athlete, and how intense you're going. I mean, if you are going above your threshold, the accumulation of lactic acid is much more higher. So the clearing will be a little faster in the start, but as the activity keeps on happening, if you're doing more than a few hours, then the body's ability to clear lactic acid will go down. And obviously, there are athletes definitely take certain supplements that help them in tolerating lactic acid or even clearing it up. So you can even do that.
Interesting. A lot of people believe that lactic acid, as it builds up, perhaps even after you're doing your training, it'll remain there in the days to come, and perhaps that's why one may feel
Yeah.
sore. But is that true, or is it the case that the soreness and the fatigue in the days after is really more from the micro tears in the muscles and those kinds of things leading to the adaptations? Because as you mentioned, the body does clear and process
Yeah,
lactic
yeah.
acid in real time.
So definitely, I mean, if you're feeling that soreness for post your activity for a few days, that's definitely from the micro tears, and definitely the acid itself will not cause that soreness for so long. So it's just the real time burn that you feel that's what the lactic acid will do. But otherwise, the delayed onset muscle soreness is usually the cause because of micro tears or the actual activity that you have done. The muscle will definitely need some time to recover from that.
Okay, very informative. Thanks for sharing that. Sure,
You're
that'll help.
welcome.
So it's really about training what your body's able to process in real time as you're performing, and ultimately being able to raise that, as you described earlier, that threshold, so that way somebody
Yeah.
can be performing at a higher power output relative to their own performance for a higher duration of time. Now let's illustrate that to make it really clear for folks. So for yourself, at whatever your FTP is, you could share that. How would you structure that very difficult workout for yourself if you were to do that in the numbers that you use? That way people can fully understand in a concrete example.
Okay. Okay, so my latest FTP was at around 220 watts. Um, so I would obviously start with a warm up of about 20 minutes with some short 20-second sprints over FTP sprints, about 20 seconds, 15 seconds, some high cadence drills in that 20 minutes. And once I have built up a good sweat, I will then start with my main set, where that uh, the 1 or 2 minutes, I would say 2 minutes of about 120% of your FTP. So I don't know what that will go to, but 120% of your FTP for about 2 minutes, and then you come down and stay at your FTP for about 3 minutes. Then you go back up to for the 2 minute at 120 again, and keep doing that for about 8 to 10 times, depending on how you're feeling.
Hmm.
And then take a breather of about 80% of TP for about 4-5 minutes, and then you finish it off with a 5-minute time trial effort, where you just try to hold as much power as you can, and that would be at around or just a little higher than your FTP. Um, yeah, and then just cool down.
Sounds pretty brutal, Chai. Sure, you work
Oh,
up
it
quite a
is
sweat
crazy.
doing that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Now, when it
call it the floodgates, the lactic floodgates.
oh wow, geez, that is a painful image I have in my mind.
Yeah, yeah,
Very cool. Now, Chai, when it comes to longer distances and long rides, how do you usually
yeah.
structure that for your athletes? And is there a upper bound to the distance that you usually give someone to do?
Um, so this is again, we work backwards from when the race is. So I mean, if we have a lot of time on our hands, so I'll start off with definitely building up the long rides gradually. So start off with a say a 2 or 3 hour rides, and then build it up to, week by week with say 2 to 4 and 4 to 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on and so forth. And then slowly have a couple of say a 15 or a 20 hour simulation ride where they'll have a crew with them. So the crew is also getting trained because ultra cycling is pretty new in India. So the crew who are not them, who could not them, most of the time they are not ultra cyclists themselves. So they need to be, get used to the idea of this whole ultra cycling thing and what the athlete might need, and the crew dynamics, right? So it's pretty crucial that we have these kind of simulations before race day, and that's how we build it up.
Mm,
And
that's
and
very cool.
definitely, I mean, we might even have some um, like a very fast 200K ride or a
Mm.
very fast 6 hour ride just to get some speed work in.
Oh, pretty cool. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to ask you, I mean, when you're putting together the long rides for your athletes, are they
Mm.
typically just at a certain tempo, or do you put any structure into them?
Um, so most of them would just be long, easy ones, like a zone two effort,
Mm.
uh, where you don't really. I don't tell my athletes to chase numbers on that day. Just go by feel, enjoy the ride. Just be out there for whatever time was given.
Mm.
But then sometimes I'll just tell them that maybe the last 10 minutes of each hour that goes past, you just do a certain say zone 4 effort over there. But that depends on again athlete to athlete and which phase of training they are in.
Right. Very cool. Thanks for sharing
Yeah.
all of that. Very, very interesting to learn, of course, and I'm sure folks will be able to apply that. And of course, if someone is looking for a coach, do you do a lot of virtual coaching for athletes, and you be able to coach them from all around the world?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of athletes in California as well.
Mm.
Some are in Europe, but yeah, I mean, we are open to doing virtual coaching, remote coaching as we call it,
Mm.
and it's not just about the training. I really help out my athletes with a. I've got a 360-degree approach to training where I help them out with the nutrition aspect uh, and actually I used to work as a strength and conditioning coach in the gym also. So
Mm.
I also help them out with the SNC aspect of ultra cycling or triathlons. So I think that pretty much covers the most three pillars for training.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
That's pretty cool, Chai. No, good to hear that you do take that holistic approach to coaching your athletes. I did want to pull up a couple of these nice photos. Of course, this was one of yourself, Ironman. This one was in
yeah,
Sweden, it looks like.
correct.
Very cool.
That's on the whole
This is
tiki
the
gear.
Deccan Cliffhanger
Yeah.
on your nice Merida bike.
If you see my number, I'm the first RQ001. So
Ah,
that's the Inspire India permanent number that I have, and I'll have that for life.
wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Number one for life.
because the first race that they did 2014, I
Yeah.
won that,
Uh,
and I was the first one to register for that, I guess. So
huh.
I'll have the 001 for life.
Jeez, well, lucky you, Chai.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I do have this other photo here. It looks like you're doing some indoor riding there.
Well, that was the virtual time trial championship, the Indian ultra
Ah,
time trial
okay.
championship. Yeah,
Yeah, that wasn't too long ago.
pretty brutal. Oh yeah.
Now, how much riding do you end up having to do through the year there, just perhaps based on even on just weather?
Um, no, actually, weather doesn't play too big a part because of I've had the trainer, the turbo trainer for about 3 years now. So
Hmm.
the ride it does take place, but then usually what happens is I have a yearly calendar where I might include a lot of running as well. So if there's a lot of emphasis of say a big running event coming up, then obviously the cycling mileage does go down. And then obviously what has happened in the last one, and especially this year, because of my son and uh, a lot of my athletes are taking a lot of my time. So
Hmm.
my own riding mileage has gone down. So I'm just finding that balance right now.
That's tricky. Well, I would say
Yeah,
we're in the same boat there, Chai. Having a new son is not
yeah.
easy. Now, I'd imagine your wife is doing quite a lot to help. And how about
Oh
yourself?
yeah, she
Are you
is.
able to get much sleep in these days?
I am, but thankfully he's a good boy. He pretty
Huh.
much sleeps through the night.
Wow.
But
Nice.
that said, I mean, there are a lot of nights where you just have to stay up or just keep on getting up, and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
recovery does not happen. And you know how it is, right? If the recovery doesn't happen, you just don't feel like getting
Yeah.
that other next session in. So
Yeah,
it
so
just,
true. In
yeah, it
fact,
just gets
that
difficult.
describes me yesterday very accurately. Did a
Yeah.
nice set of intervals the evening before, but got about maybe 1 or 2 hours of solid rest, and the rest was waking up at
But
3 a.m.
I knew that was going to happen. So, I
Yeah.
just focused a little more on running. So it takes a little less time.
Hmm.
So,
That's true. And talking about balancing life as you were suggesting earlier to all of your athletes, how do you balance all those things? And when you have a big life event like a new child that does come into play, but being able to be clever about how you structure your training and your time is important. And
correct.
factoring in, as you mentioned just now, the time for recovery also.
Yeah,
Now, of course, I mean, I'm sure you as a coach, you definitely tell your athletes that the quality over quantity is important, especially in a time like you're in, where you have
correct.
less time. So you really do want to focus on not just the quality of your rides, and they don't have to be very long, but high intensity.
Correct.
But then more than
Correct.
that, also the recovery. Otherwise, you're not really able to get those adaptations and all that hard work you put in.
Correct.
Yeah, and I would say, although your son has a coach for a father, since
Yeah.
he's sleeping much better, I'm probably more trained when it comes to sleep deprivation. So
Uh,
you're a bit of a disadvantage there, Chai.
no, I've got some of that done in too, believe me.
All right, Chai, tell me about this photo here.
Oh, okay. So that's from road race. Those 3, 4 boys around me are all my students, and this was I think a 120K road race, and this the student of mine in black jersey
Hmm.
is currently on his way to become one of the fastest in India.
Wow.
Um, Yeah, so that was a pic from that event a couple
That's
of
so
years
cool.
back, I think. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, it
very
was a
cool.
road race.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How old is he?
Uh, in this picture, I think he was at around 19, 20, something.
Oh wow. Okay, so very young.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you know how it is road racing. You got to be young and fast.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. When did you start road racing? How old were you?
I started pretty late. I think I was about 22, 21, 22.
Oh, okay.
No, so actually I was, yeah, 21, 21, yeah.
Mm,
And I raced till I was about 25.
okay, very
This
cool.
was a picture from the Dubai Ironman 70.3, where the two guys on my right is Niket and Arham.
Mm,
Niket is totally visually impaired, and he
wow.
became the first Indian to finish an Ironman, the first
Wow.
visually impaired Indian to finish an Ironman.
Mm,
So
wow.
he was my student. I coached him for about 7, 8 months,
Mm,
and Aram he's my student as well, and he was his cited ally.
mm. That's very special and very cool. Great
Oh
achievements you've
yeah,
been able to help many athletes accomplish. And so I'm sure it is very exciting for you to see all of the ultra events going on, especially there in India, and you being able to take a big part in that.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like we were talking about
Thanks to
earlier, just
Divya.
with the, yeah, definitely, she has been a pioneer in the country.
Yeah,
Of course, you are helping and taking that baton on in your own way, and even with the Everesting
yeah,
event that we were discussing earlier, I think that's very cool to have such an official event that folks could look forward to, train towards, get some coaching for, and get them
correct.
well on their way to ultra cycling. Now, I'm curious for yourself, what other events are on your own bucket list? I mean, you're still pretty young, so you have a long road ahead of you and many
Yeah,
miles
yeah.
that you can do. Well, what are some of the top things in your own bucket list?
Um, so like I would. So this year I was planning to do a sub 3 marathon.
Wow.
Do some ultra runs, about 50 Ks and 70 Ks. Then move on to, so, this year was all about improving my runs. Next year, the first half of the year was to improve on my swim, get up to 10 Ks, 15K of swims. And then move on to in the year 2020 do some fast Ultraman events.
Mm,
So once I have enough base in all these three legs of the triathlon, um, and then definitely I would someday want to do RAM. That's pretty high on the to do list.
wow, cool.
Do the race around Ireland. That's for some reason has always
Hmm,
really intrigued me.
yeah,
Just
sure.
just because it seems so tough and crazy. Um,
And scenic. We had
and oh, yeah,
we had an Irish ultra athlete, former pro cyclist Joe Barr on
oh
the
yeah,
show
yeah, yeah. I've
previously.
met him. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And of
He's
course, he
pretty
puts on
awesome.
his own series of events, the Race Joe Bar, and
Yeah,
there's also a RAM qualifier there. So perhaps that would be a good
right.
opportunity as well. And maybe after you do his event, you could go immediately to the starting line of the race around Ireland.
Definitely.
Training. Yeah, that's cool. We look forward to having you out here again for the race across America.
Yeah,
Of course, you went all the way across and you did see what Joan Deichmann had to go through, and you saw not only the beauty of the country, but also the brutalness of all of the different
right.
conditions, of course, going from the west coast to east coast of America, from the desert to the Rocky Mountains to all the rolling hills from Missouri onwards to until you get to the Appalachians, and of course extreme heat and
Yeah,
some cold as well. And so you'll be able to train very well. And of course, you are a coach and a nutritionist. Now, I did want to quickly talk a bit about that. You mentioned earlier, your 360 approach to training your athletes. We did talk about a lot of the recovery and the training. And also, there is the nutritional aspect. What are a couple of your top tips just generally for any athlete that you give them when it comes to nutrition? What is something they can take them, a lot of the way? One of those things, where like if you just do, this 20%, it'll take you 80% of the way there.
um, Sleep well. I mean, one thing I definitely tell my athlete is not to use their phones just before when they go to bed.
Mm,
I think the quality of sleep matters a lot. So just not worrying about things, or just not looking at your phone definitely is a big plus point for recovery. Other thing would be just to have a good habits for nutrition. Just have a good clean eating lifestyle. That's also going to be a good one. I mean, not just having a lot of sugary and processed stuff in general will be overall, as you said, 20% better or whatever.
mm,
Um, yeah, and then and we also focus a little on the things that a lot of people or athletes don't try or ignore. I mean, the whole flexibility and mobility aspects,
mm,
because I believe is that flexibility is directly related to or proportional to performance.
mm,
So, sorry, performance is directly proportional to flexibility, right? So, the more flexible you are and the more mobile, your joint, the range of motions you have, that's going to help you perform better and prevent injury. So, getting those proper strength and conditioning workouts and not ignoring those stretches and those yoga poses will definitely help
mm.
athletes perform better.
Yeah, interesting. On the subject of strength training, how do you
Yeah.
usually fit that into a person's training plan? Do you do a big base somewhere in there, perhaps in the beginning? And then what does it look like through a race season?
I usually don't have just a phase where they just do SNC. Usually, so most of our athletes uh, who just start out, they don't, so we don't have like really of those pro athletes yet. So people who with day jobs, they have very limited time frames in their hands. So they'll have like a big A race coming up in a year or in about 7 to 8 months. So the SNC has to go hand in hand with their endurance events. So the SNC will probably go for 2 or 3 times a week, with their other sessions for the day. So they might have a run or a bike and a leg day probably, or a core day, or just a full body day, depending on their where they are and how they are, and their goals.
Yeah.
So, or it could just be a mobility session where they just have to work on their flexibility and mobility.
Mm. Yeah, very important, all of those
Yeah.
subjects. It is great to hear that many of your athletes are able to get that training. I did want to turn now, Chai, to briefly talk about two of the TEDx talks that you actually gave. Here's
Yeah.
one titled The Ironman Title or a 9 to 5 Desk Job. The choice was simple. And another one, which we can discuss afterwards, Coaching India's New Breed of Pro Athletes Through Scientific Training. Very interesting topics. Let's turn back to this one. Give us a little brief overview for those who have not seen this video yet, but of course they can go check it out. We'll include a link so folks can watch that. It looks like it's only just over 16 minutes, so nice, short and sweet. But give us the rundown of this talk.
So this was back in 2015. So at that time, 2012 to 2014, I used to work as a assistant professor at the university where
Mm,
I was teaching biotechnology. Along with that, I was doing my own training, and I did the DC and won that when I had a 9 to 5 job. After that, I quit the job and I started working in a gym as a personal trainer.
Mm.
and that's where I got sponsored by the gym to do the Ironman. And in this whole journey, there was a constant, um, there was a lot of anxiousness and peer pressure, you may call it, that I quit my job to start training and just full time get into the health and fitness industry, especially here in India, where it's not very established, it's not organized, and it doesn't usually doesn't pay well. So
Mm.
for someone who's educated and done at least a master level education, going back and working in a gym is it doesn't really happen here. So
Mm.
it was a big shock for everyone and the family and the friends. So I had to fight all of that and to prove myself, because obviously I was also in doubts
Mm.
about if this is going to work or not. But then it did work. I got the sponsorships. I got a good job that into the fitness industry that I wanted as a coach. That all picked up. I did some records. So yeah, the gamble paid off, I guess. So that's what the video is all about.
Oh, very cool. Sounds exciting. Of course, you have had a lot of success through the years now, and you can look back to see how far you've come. And as you
Yeah.
said, it was well worth the investment. But as a
So
young and ambitious,
just the thing was, it was all this. I had, when I was in Australia, it's sports is so established over there.
mm,
You actually have a lot of people, people like cycling coaches actually making a very good living out there. But
mm,
here in India, it's these things are very very new, and we are all very immature about the whole cycling or the ultra scene. So
mm,
for us to when I started doing these ultra events, I didn't have a lot of guidance, very technical guidance as well. So uh, for me to get into this was I had a dream that I would like to be one of the best coaches of India, and
mm,
probably have a kid at the Olympics as well in a triathlon or a cycling. So
mm.
I hope we reach that soon.
That's very exciting and great ambitions. A very young and ambitious coach, athlete, and entrepreneur.
Thank you.
But I think it is paying those dividends that you were looking for, and it is a really a great sacrifice that you made for not just yourself, but also for the entire community of athletes and ultra cyclists there in India. So it's very cool to see you pioneering the
Thanks.
way, just as Divya has in her
Yeah,
generation, getting a lot of things started there. So it's cool to see all of that happening.
yeah,
Look forward to checking out that entire video. And of course, you did give another talk more recently this year, in fact, coaching India's
yeah.
new breed of pro athletes through scientific training. Give us the rundown of this video.
So the first video, that's where I started my whole coaching career, serious coaching career, if I may. And then that's where I started applying all my scientific knowledge that I had gained, and applying those principles of biochemistry, biomechanics. Um, that did pay a lot of dividends. And all the youngsters who had been coaching for the last 4 5 years, going from starting from a young kid and going to become a top 10 national athlete.
Mm,
I saw that, okay, I started believing in myself firstly, that okay, this is working, the plan is working, the training is working, all the science is working. So that's where Power Peaks was born last year, where I formally started my own academy, where I coached, started coaching all these athletes in triathlon, ultra cycling, ultra running, and till date I have had 100% success rate in Ironmans, not
mm,
a single DNF till date, and we have had a pretty pretty good records as well. I mean, pioneering ways, something like the Everesting, where such an event had never happened here before. Even before that, the first virtually, visually impaired Indian to do the Ironman. So for
Mm,
me, it's always been about, uh, you know, all that thing that I learned in Australia, that I saw in the America where I was there for a month, getting all those learnings and giving it all back to the Indian community and making sure that the whole Indian sports progresses. And that's what this video is about. The whole using this science, this learning from all my travels in Europe, Australia, America, whatever I learned, and applying then and creating an elite Indian athlete who can go and compete with the Americans, with the Australians, and with the Europeans out there.
mm. Wow. That's a great vision that you're casting, Chai, for your athletes and the community there. It is exciting because from what I could tell already, there are many strong athletes in development and a lot of great
Yeah,
accomplishments already had. So I could just imagine what the next 5 years will hold for both yourself, your athletes, and the Indian scene of athletes. And I do look forward to seeing all of you out on the global stage competing in events there in Europe and here in the US and around the world.
yeah.
So, Chai, it's been a real pleasure being able to talk with you, and I'm sure we'll have you back on the show shortly, and as well as others of your own athletes as well who are working towards some great goals and who have accomplished many things. So, thanks for being part of the ultra cycling family, and nice to meet another strong ultra cyclist there in India. And we look forward to being able to visit someday.
Awesome.
You
Yeah,
know,
that would be great. Justin, do come over.
yeah, make sure you have a bucket of your favorite ice cream there waiting for us.
Definitely.
Now, Chai, just a couple short questions as we close out
Yeah.
here. First thing I'd like to ask is, what do you think most people don't realize about ultra cycling? Whether it's a non-cyclist or just a non-ultra cyclist.
Okay. Well, this is a very Indian aspect to it.
Mm,
We get asked a lot of questions that so these country folks, they just come over on their bikes or their cars and just say, oh, how long have you been cycling? And then you tell them your story, and then they're like, does your cycle have an engine in it? I mean, like, dude, what do you think? You know? And then what also on a serious note, um, a lot of people don't realize is ultra cycling, we eat and drink on the bike. We barely stop. They don't even, when they think that,
mm,
okay, we cycled for 24 hours,
yeah,
they'll think that, oh, okay, we had like a nice 5 hour break somewhere and,
right.
stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, the whole brutalness of it, the whole, what I don't think they realize, the whole mental, aspect of it, like, no matter how strong an athlete could be, but if he or she is not going to be comfortable, with the conditions and just keep pushing, then I don't think that's going to last long.
Mm, yeah,
I think
very
Justin,
true.
you should, you'll agree with me on that.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Well said, Chai. Now, a couple short sprint to the finish line
Yeah.
questions here for you. First one is, I'm wondering, how would you rate yourself in terms of bicycle maintenance on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being exceptional? Cleaning your bikes, lubing your changing out your tires.
I would say 8.
Ah, wow. All
Yeah,
right.
and just that the last two, no, because I just don't get enough time now as I used to.
Hmm.
So I just for just the intricate parts, I'll just give it to a bike mech. And and
Yeah,
and honestly, the bike mech is also my friend, so he's got to earn as well. So
cool. No, that's awesome. Well, I must say, Chai, an 8 is high up there on the charts for the
I
show.
mean, you have to be. I mean, come on, your bike is the only thing that's gonna take you.
Well, yeah, that seems like it would be the truth, but in reality, I would say the average has been around 3 to 5 on this
For
show.
sure.
We've even had a few.
Being a coach, I'm pretty anal about, a clean bike is a fast bike.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. A clean bike is a fast bike. And I must say, you may need to get on the case of a couple of the athletes on the show because they're actually in the negatives.
Ah, shit. No.
Okay, Chai, last question I have for you. Who do you want to nominate for a future episode on this show? Is there a story that has inspired you or just one that you think is worth sharing?
Um, I would say the first thing that comes into my mind, I'm not sure if it's relevant here, but Nikhil Dalal, the first, the blind triathlete from India. So
Hmm.
he has also done a lot of brevets, and he's on his way to become a super randoner.
Hmm. Wow.
So I think maybe he could, share. There's so much insight and that's so much learning I got to him just being his coach.
Hmm.
I mean, I could say that he was my coach because I got to learn so much real life stuff from him about discipline, about planning, and just in general having the motivation. Even, just imagine, shutting off your eyes and riding 200 kilometers.
Hmm.
I don't know. I
Amazing.
think I think that's one. You should totally have him. You'll
Yeah.
not regret it.
Thanks for that nomination, Chai. Sounds like a very
Yeah.
inspirational story, I'm sure. And if he was able to coach the coach, there's something to be said about that. So, Chai, it's been a
Yeah.
pleasure again. Thank you very much for making the time to share not only some of your story, but also some of your tips as a coach, as a nutritionist, and also a scientist. We wish you the best with all your
Thank
entrepreneurial
you.
endeavors as you continue to trailblaze the way, along with Divya Tate there in India. And we look forward to seeing the ultra cycling scene continue to develop in India and hope to have many athletes from around the world competing in things like the Deccan Cliffhanger and other ultra events there, and perhaps even the Everesting
Definitely.
event that we hope to see again in the near future. And it'll be cool to see all the other records being broken as more athletes participate. So thanks again, and we look forward to having you on the show again soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. It was amazing talking to you. Thank you for having me. Um, Definitely. And good luck to you. All the best for all your endeavors and for the what you're doing. It's really amazing. Getting all these knowledge and sharing and helping athletes connect to the global forum. So all the best and really thank you.
Yeah, most definitely, Chai. And for those who are watching at home, definitely check out Chai's TEDx talks to get some inspiration. Then sign up for his 360-degree coaching at Power Peaks Athlete Lab to turn that inspiration into perspiration towards a goal, perhaps like an Ironman, an ultra event like the Deccan Cliffhanger in India, or perhaps even the race across America. So we'll see you at the starting line. Until next episode, keep spinning ultra.